Hello, my name is Jamie Braidwood and I'm a sports reporter at The Independent. We asked for your questions ahead of Wimbledon, so let's see what you asked. So the first question is, hey tennis Twitter, if Novak Djokovic is the #1 favourite for Wimbledon, who is #2? So Djokovic is definitely the clear favourite for Wimbledon. He's won the tournament 4 years in a row and is trying to join Roger Federer on 8 singles titles this summer. So clearly he is the one to beat. No one's managed to do that since 2017. No one's managed to do that on centre court since 2013. So it's a huge task. And I think a week ago, I wouldn't have been too sure who the #2 favourite was. That was until Carlos Alcaraz came through and won his first grass court title at Queen's last Sunday. Alcaraz is, the youngest #1 in tennis history. He's already a Grand Slam champion at the US Open. We knew he was brilliant on clay and brilliant on hard courts. But grass was always a surface where there were questions about his game. He completely answered all of them when he won Queen's, and just seeing how he progressed day by day through the tournament was kind of scary. Him sort of unlocking his movement, his forehand, his serve, and that was a real statement for Alcaraz to come through a tournament like that before Wimbledon and really announce himself as a contender for the title. I still think it'll be really difficult for anyone to stop Djokovic, Alcaraz included, but I wouldn't be too surprised if we ended up with a Djokovic-Alcaraz final at Wimbledon. Glyn says, is it just me or do we lack star quality in the field nowadays? As a massive tennis fan, I miss the dominance of the Williams sisters, Nadal, Federer, Murray and Djokovic. I look at the women's field and I think, who are these people? I miss the golden age of tennis. Anyone else feel the same? Well, I think if you are the sort of tennis fan that maybe watches Wimbledon and that's all you watch, I'm sure you won't be the only person maybe feeling that way. Tennis has sort of going through this period where it has been dominated for so long by so many big stars and big personalities in Serena and Venus Williams, who actually isn't done. Venus Williams is back this year for her 24th Wimbledon at the age of 43. And of course, Novak Djokovic and Andy Murray are still around too. But in the past couple of years, we've seen Roger Federer retire, Serena Williams retire, Rafael Nadal is going to be having his final year next year. So of course, when tennis had that period of transition, it was always going to be tough for the next players to come through. But I think, as I mentioned with Alcaraz, that is a huge star that's already arrived on the scene of the game, and he's only 20 years old. He's only playing in his 3rd Wimbledon, I think, but definitely only his first as a real contender. And he really has the opportunity now to really seize the stage and become a bit of a fan favourite. The same applies to world #1 Iga Świątek, who is already a 4-time Grand Slam champion. And both Świątek and Alcaraz have these really fun, engaging ways of playing, also really fun personalities. And I think rivalries is going to be really key as well. Świątek is starting to have that with Aryna Sabalenka and Elena Rybakina, while Alcaraz is having that with Holger Rune, Jannik Sinner, and still with Djokovic. So I think, tennis was always going to have this tough period, but there are definitely loads of names to look out for at Wimbledon. Mark asks, do you think Andy Murray can win Wimbledon? And there is nothing that I would want or like to see more than Andy Murray winning Wimbledon after all the injuries, after surgery, 10 years after his first title at Wimbledon. It would just be the most incredible story. But it is not going to happen. I think it's just unrealistic to even start to think about Murray winning Wimbledon at the age of 36 and after everything he's been through. But there is definitely optimism there that he can go on a run, I think, at this Wimbledon. He's coming into the tournament probably in his best shape physically since definitely before surgery. He's won 2 titles ahead of Wimbledon, one at Surbiton, one at Nottingham on the Challenger circuit. And he still comes into Wimbledon as one of the most experienced and one of the best grass court players in the whole tournament. Murray also showed what he can still do at Grand Slams in Australia at the start of the year when he defeated Matteo Berrettini in 5 sets and then had that astonishing comeback against Thanasi Kokkinakis. He is still such a hard player to beat, and especially when you have the Wimbledon crowd behind you, I think Murray could probably beat most players in the draw. The only difficulty is he does come into Wimbledon as an unseeded player, so he's kind of at the mercy of the draw, and his, whether he gets into the second week is kind of dependent on that. However, if he does get a good one and he's able to get a couple of wins under his belt, saving his legs, saving his body, if he gets into the third round, you never know. I still think he has the ability to beat most players at the tournament. Jane asks, have I missed something? Has something changed? Why are athletes from Russia and Belarus being allowed to play Wimbledon? Yeah, of course. Last year, players from Russia and Belarus weren't allowed to play at Wimbledon following the invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. When Wimbledon made that decision, it was the only one of the 4 Grand Slams who took that decision, and it was a hugely controversial one. It drew criticism from the men's and women's professional tours as well as the other Grand Slams, and Wimbledon faced consequences for that decision, such as ranking points being taken away from the tournament and the ATP and WTA fining Wimbledon for that decision. Ahead of 2023, it was also kind of threatened with more severe punishments if they continued to exclude Russian and Belarusian players from the tournament. So I think Wimbledon kind of felt it was backed into a bit of a corner. In March, it announced the decision that Russian and Belarusian players were going to be allowed to enter the tournament again under a series of strict conditions. Players had to declare their neutrality and vow that they weren't receiving any sort of financial support from their countries. And they also had to promise that they would not support the Russian or Belarusian regimes during the tournament. But of course, the decision was still hugely controversial. Tennis over the past year and a half has just been full of incidents when Ukrainian players have played Russian and Belarusian players at the French Open last month. We saw Elena Svitolina, who's a leading Ukrainian player, being booed after she didn't shake the hand of Aryna Sabalenka. So there is set to be further incidents like that at Wimbledon this year. There are just going to be. It isn't an easy situation for anyone to deal with, I think, especially the Ukrainian players. And I think the question really summed it up when you're asking, why are Russian and Belarusian players back at Wimbledon? Because the war is still going. We're coming up to 500 days since the invasion of Ukraine, and there is still conflict in the country. And I think Wimbledon. My personal opinion is that Wimbledon probably could have been stronger after being backed into that corner, but the decision is going to be hugely controversial over the next few weeks. Thank you for your questions ahead of Wimbledon. You can watch more episodes of You Ask the Questions on Independent TV.